good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. I know y'all see the title. We're gonna have to leave this world behind, right? It's a play off that movie that just came out, right? And the movie has some truth to it. Even though I would say it's really more like a watered down version of what's really could happen, what's really going to happen. But I mean, I guess you can look at it like as the initial shock or the initial reaction of people when things start going awry, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into some Bible prophecies that coincide and line up to that, what I'm saying, to that movie, right? So, but of course, and first and foremost, we say Kal Hala Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah, right? Which means in the Paleo Hebrew, all praises to the Most High God, Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus, right? So yeah, we're gonna get right into it. So like I said, it's a interesting movie, right? So it had a lot of what they call Easter eggs in it, a lot of hidden gems up in it, right? So but yeah, and that's the thing too. Like we gotta understand that you know the times, right? Understand what's happening in the times and where we at, because like I said, a lot of times we just be going about our normal day, whatever stuff we got going on in our life, we consume with that, and we don't pay attention to the news. We don't see what's really going on in the outside world, right? So, and we, get, then a lot of times when stuff happens, tragedies and stuff, it's, it's blindsiding, right? And the Bible tells us that when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes. So, and that's how God, operates. Especially if He want to get you, He gonna wait till you're comfortable. You know how we say in the streets, catch somebody lacking, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's how God operates. He catch you while you're lacking, while you think everything is all peaches and cream. Then, before you know it, you got a big ass storm in your life. All hell is breaking loose, right? So that's how God operates. So that's why it says when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction shall come, right? Let's get that real quick. There's 1 Thessalonians 5:3. It says, "For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them, and travail upon women with child, and they shall not escape." Right? So that's what the Bible says. It says when we comfortable, chilling, relaxing, shooting some b-ball outside of the school, we that's when all things that's when things happen. And we know that to be true in our own life sometimes, right? We know how sometimes everything can be all great, all cool, then all of a sudden some stuff come out of nowhere. So that's how God operates. He catch people slipping, and He's going to catch these nations slipping. So when things look like it's dying down, things look like it's going back to normal, then that's when all hell breaks loose, right? So let's get let's get let's go to Joel 3:9 real quick, right? We're gonna dive right into it. So This is Joel 3:9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let the men of war draw near. Let them come up." Right? So that's what we see when we're watching these different nations. Iran talking, that talk. China talking that talk. North Korea talking that talk. Russia on that. You know what I'm saying? All these different countries, they're preparing war, right? Because God is putting that spirit on these nations to go to war, to bring them all to one big old fight, one big old end all be all, what we know as World War III, that the Bible calls Armageddon, right? So that's what happens. So it says, "Proclaim ye among the Gentiles," and the word Gentile just means nations, right? Because a lot of times, we see this word Gentile, we just think it's just talking about non-Israelites. But when you take this word back to the Hebrew, which would be goy or goyim, it just means nations. So it says, "Proclaim this among the Gentiles, the nations. Prepare war, wake up the mighty man. Let the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and prong hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong." Right? That's what's happening right now. You have these countries that, they're starting to mass produce weapons, bullets, getting their armory together, getting their instruments of war together. America does that too, because you got a lot of these factories, especially around where I live at. Some of them have military contracts, right? I used to work at this one spot where they had a military contract, and they made gaskets and stuff for the military. And this other spot I used to work at, they made like airplane parts, right? So now, typically they were making other type of material for like domestic things. But then that military contract came in, so now they switched their production to making instruments of war. So that's what a lot of these countries is doing. They might be known for making this or making that, but now they converted their factories to producing things that can go towards their military. So that's what it means by "beat your plowshares into swords and your prong hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong," right? So a lot of these third world countries back in the day wouldn't even dream to try to fight against America. But now the weak saying, I am strong. Forget America. So we got the capabilities now. We can team up. Just like, when that one day when people group up and go against the bully in school. Now they got that strength together, right? So that's how these third world countries is feeling now. And not only that, they got Russia and China that got, China got a big economy behind them, right? India, nice economy behind them, right? So they have formidable allies with them. So that's why it says, let the weak say I am strong. So they realizing like, hold on, we can take these guys. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to take this mess for these people no more. We can team up and we can take these guys, right? Let's get Isaiah 14 real quick. So they realizing that they can go toe to toe with these people now. It's not going to be an unfair fight. America knows it's not going to be an unfair fight. That's why America haven't jumped head first into this thing. They've been throwing money at it, hoping that they can throw some money at it and the problem will go away. But after a while, the well going to dry up. America ain't going to be able to throw that money at them like that no more. They're going to have to put troops on the ground, right? Let's get this. It's Isaiah 14:10. All they that speak and shall say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? So that's how these other nations looking at America, like America is not that strong anymore. It says, become weak as we, art thou become like unto us, right? So that's how they're looking at them now. So they know that America is not that great, strong country anymore, right? I brought this out like a month or so ago about how our military is like overweight. Then not only that, recruitment is down 25%, right? So America is not that no more. And a lot of these other countries is looking at it. That's why it says, let the weak say, I am strong. Then over here it says, all they that shall speak and say unto thee, the thee is America, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Right? So that's how they looking at these at this nation, right? So like I said, all it takes for that, that right thing to happen, and it's on and popping, right? And it's already on the brakes. We seeing, nations, you got Russia and Ukraine going at it. You got Israel and Hamas going at it, right? Then you have stuff going on in Africa that they're not even speaking about, right? The Sudans and some other people, I forgot. So you got stuff going on all over the place. And this is what the beginning of World War III is. This is what World War III is. Everybody fighting everybody. But then, they pick a side. You know what I'm saying? All right, we're linking up with these people, and they linking up with them. So, and then everybody go at it. Then last man standing. So then they ruling the world. That's how it goes, right? So we looking at the beginning stages. Only thing is, because America got that Article 5 thing. So, which means in one fight, we all fight. So, like I said, so it is looking like America's going to get drawn into this thing some type of way. Even though, like, they haven't literally put troops on the ground with guns in their hands yet. But it's going to get to that point, right? And, so, and then once it gets to that point, like I said, they got that Article 5. How we say in the streets, if you jump, we gonna jump. You know what I'm saying? So if you fight, if America get into a fight, all NATO gotta get into the fight. Right? But then check this out. Interesting thing too, right? So now let's just get this real quick, right? So so interesting point, right? So because you got so now you got Biden in office right now, right? And you got Biden in office, and spearheading everything, right? Getting all these NATO all involved into this whole mess, right? So it's like because the Bible prophecy is going to happen, right? It's going to happen, and God is the maestro of this whole thing. So God can have it play out any type of way He wants it to play out, right? That's why we have to keep our eyes circumvents, where we can be able to see, look at these prophecies, and understand where we're at in this thing, right? So that way we won't be caught in the dark. So that's why it's important to, look at these world events. Hold on, really quick. Let's get this really quick. So now, all right. So now, so like I said, you got Biden there, right? So now there's two ways how this thing can fold out, right? If Biden remains president, it can get to a point where, because the Bible tells you that the members of NATO is going to turn against America. Not every last one of the members of NATO, but a substantial amount is going to turn against America. That's what the Bible says, right? So now it can either fold like this. If Biden remains president, it can get to a point where certain members of NATO is realizing that this is a losing effort. Then they might decide to jump ship and go over there with Russia. And they're in the BRICS, right? And with Gucci Man and the BRICS squad, they might decide to go over there, right? So it can happen that way. And the reason why it can happen that way, just get this real quick. This is Daniel chapter 2 and 41, right? It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, so this is, you read up a little bit, it's talking about the statue, right? And different members of that statue, different body parts of that statue represent nations and kingdoms, that empires that came into power throughout the ages that's going to rule. So now we're talking about the feet and toes, which is the last empire that's going to be on the earth before who the world calls Jesus come back, right? So now he's explaining it, right? So it says, and whereas thou saw the feet and the toes, which is America and NATO, because those 10 toes represent the NATO nations, right? It says the feet and the toes, part potter's clay and part iron. The kingdom shall be divided. And when you've been paying attention to the geopolitics, to NATO, they're very split on what to do with Russia. They're split on what to do with Israel and Hamas. Because you have some NATO countries that national religion is Islam, like Turkey. Even though Turkey is a European country, but their national religion is Islamic, right? So you have a split in there. So it says, the kingdom should be divided, but there should be in the strength of the iron. So that iron is talking about their military. So that's where their real strength lies, in their military, because like we discussed earlier, they have something called Article 5. If one fight, we all fight. So they're bound by that contract. If one get into it, we all got to get into it, right? So that's where it says the strength shall be of the strength of the iron. But for much as thou sawest the iron mixed with clay, and mixed with myrrh clay, as the toes and the feet are part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with NATO and the EU, which is partly strong and partly broken. Which brings me to my next point. Donald Trump, if he get into office, Donald Trump says he's going to leave NATO. He's going to exit NATO, right? So now think about this. America has been spearheading NATO for all this long time, right? So now, like I said, first point, if Biden's in office, all the other NATO countries can start looking at what's going on in the world as a losing effort, and then they can decide to turn on America that way, because it's going to happen. We're going to get that verse too. But then Trump says if he becomes president, he's going to leave NATO. So then, now that can make the NATO nations turn on America also, because they like, dude, you got us into this trouble, you got us fighting everybody, then you just going to leave, right? Just like if you out with a friend and your friend get drunk and they start trying to fight everybody, then soon everything kick off, they run and jump in the car and leave you fighting everybody. You're going to be mad as hell at your friend, right? So same thing. So Trump is like, all right, if I become president, I'm going to leave, we're going to get out of NATO, right? So that can cause friction, right? So then, because now you got NATO fighting the whole world, and you started the whole thing, and now you want to leave. So like I said, so the Bible is cold, man, when you get into it. Like, when you start understanding these prophecies, because you can see it either go either way. So either way, it ain't going to be good, It's like how they say, either take the poison or the bullet. You know what I'm saying? So it's either way, it ain't going to be good. So if Biden stay, we can see how the other nations in NATO can turn against America, because, if things is not going their way, because you think things is, energy and all that stuff is all jacked up here in America. I heard somebody say that they're paying like $6 a gallon for gas. They stay out on the West Coast in Seattle. So now you think, gas prices and food prices, energy prices is kind of, up for us. It's up too for those other NATO countries, because, they're part of the same thing, because they all doing a little sanctions on Russia, and it all kind of messed up a lot of them. That's why, back to Daniel, where it says, boom, boom, boom. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, right? Or jump up a little bit, and it says the kingdom shall be divided, because you have some countries that is not sanctioning Russia like they supposed to. Yeah, some NATO countries that is not even putting sanctions on Russia, because they still getting their oil and stuff and their energy from Russia. When the game plan was, we all gonna turn our back on Russia. So that's why it says the kingdom shall be divided, but the kingdom shall be divided. So we see that, right? So like I said, it can go either way, right? So let's get this real quick. This is Revelation 17 and 16. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon that beast. So it's talking about NATO and the EU. That's what the 10 horns represent. These shall hate the whore. The whore is America. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And what is that talking about? Nuclear bombs. That's what it's talking about. They're going to be like, look, let's get this place. You know, so like I said, either or, whether it's Trump in office or Biden in office, however it plays out, is going to lead to, it says, the 10 horns which thou saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, meaning exposed, and shall eat her flesh, talking about destroy their armies, and burn her with fire. That's some nuclear bombs that these NATO countries have in their possession, along with, you know, the BRICS wide, right? So like I said, we can see how it can go either way, right? So, hold on real quick, Salakia. You said it's day 7 of Feast of Dedications. You got one more day. So yeah, Salakia. So again, so it can play out either way, right? So so yeah, so we see, like, when we get into these prophecies and how the Bible says how it's going to play out, we can see how it's going to go, right? Let's get this one right here. So this is Jeremiah 50 and 22. It says, a sound of battle is in the land, and of great desolation, right? So, and that's what's happening. A sound of battle is in the land. Then it says, how the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken. And who is that hammer? It's America, because America goes around trying to police the whole world, and they're going to be broken. And it says, how the hammer of the whole earth is cut asunder and broken. How Babylon become desolate among the nations, right? And we just read that over here. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and eat her flesh, and burn her with fire, right? So, like I said, so we see the end result of this place, right? And it's not good. And it says, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou waste not aware. I mean, thou was not aware. And that's the thing. Our people, you know, just think this place gonna last forever. You know, like Keith Sweat, make it last forever. But no, every civilization, every empire has a time to rule, right? And then America, just so happened, America time is up. They done a lot of wickedness throughout the whole earth. And then, you know, they got to pay for it. what people don't get or realize, we serve a just God, right? God, what type of God would he be if he let this nation, this empire, do all this destruction that they did throughout the earth, and then they get to ride out in the sunset, everybody cool, chilling it, right? It don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? That's not the God we serve. We serve a God of justice. Even though it might not seem like things happen, quick, fast, in a hurry. It tells you that God is long suffering. Because God, like I said, God is like the feds, right? The feds, they might not arrest you the first time you commit a crime. They're gonna watch you. They're gonna keep building the case up to you. Keep building the case. So when they finally slam you, they're gonna be well justified, right? That's why they have a 98 something percent conviction rate, right? Because when they get you, they're gonna get you. And that's how God works. So he's going to wait till you guys, not you guys, but I'm saying wait till this place, continue in their wickedness. But we can see that it's getting to that point where judgment is happening, right? And the Bible tells us as we come back and come back to our culture and who we are, he passes judgment on this place, right? And let's just get that real quick, right? We're going to get back to this, but let's just get that real quick. Because, like I said, Pastor is not going to explain this stuff to us. You're going to go to church Sunday, and Pastor's going to be singing and dancing. Some guy going to be playing a tangerine. Some old lady wig going to be flying off. And somebody going to be doing backflips up the aisle, right? And you ain't going to know what's going on around here, right? So it says, and it shall come to pass, meaning this is future tense, when all the things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them into mind among the nations, whether the Lord thy God have driven thee. So that's what we're doing right now. We're remembering our contract with God. We're remembering what God promised us, the Israelites. It says, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I commanded thee this day, thou and thy children, all thy heart with all thy soul, right? So we got to teach our children this knowledge. We got to raise our kids up in the right understanding of this Bible and being believing Israelites, right? Because the Bible says you teach a child, when you get them, you teach them while they're young, then when they get older, they won't go, they won't stray far away. Because sometimes, people do start trying to experience things in life and go this way and that way. But if you teach them right, you give them the right fundamentals, they're going to come back, to what they know to be true, right? Because like that parable that Jesus said, the prodigal son. The prodigal son wanted to go turn up, live his life, be young and free, while the other brother was doing what his father told him to do. But then the father, being a good, loving father, being a metaphor for God, was welcome arms when the prodigal son came back, right? So it says, and then the Lord thy God will return thy captivity. Because right now we're in captivity. People don't even understand it. Just because we don't got shackles on our necks and, getting whipped on our back physically, we think that we're free, right? You're not free. Even Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus, told us, if you're paying taxes to a foreign nation, you are a slave, right? And that's how we understand slavery. Even America understood that. That's why they fought against the British, right? We remember what they taught us, the Boston Tea Party, right? So they understand taxes is slavery. That's oppression, right? So, but then, that's just one aspect of it. It's a lot of different things that they do here to make sure that, our existence is not to its full potential that it could be, right? So it says that then the Lord thy God will return thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations, whether the Lord thy God hath scattered thee, right? Okay, I was just reading something. So let's get a precept to that real quick. So this second Maccabees 1:27. Gather those that are scattered from us, right? How do we get scattered? Through the transatlantic slave trade, through the Arab slave trade, the sub-Saharan slave trade. Gather those together that are scattered from us, deliver them that serve among the heathen, which is these other nations. Look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our God. Right? And this is how you know it's not talking about the little curly haired people with the saucer sitting on top of their head, because you're not allowed to abhor them. The word abhor means to hate. Because if you openly speak against them, it will be consequences and repercussions, right? That's why I have to say the people with the curly hair and the saucers on the top, And I'm pretty sure, I pray that you understand what I'm talking about when I say the people with the curly hair and the saucer sitting on top of their heads, right? The little small hats, niggers, right? So they're not a horde. We are the ones that is judged no matter where we go. Like Oprah Winfrey went to France that one time, and they didn't want her in the store because she was black. And she's supposed to be one of the richest black women, right? So we are a horde, right? And it says, if any of thy be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from hence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from hence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee unto the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do good, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Right? Another point, if it's talking about those people with the curly stuff hanging from the side and the little saucer hats, or the little black hats that they like to wear looking like some damn pilgrims, they've been over there for like 60, 70 something years. We don't see no signs of that happening to them. Where it says that it says, and the Lord thy God was circumcised, because it says the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart and circumcise thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, right? So majority of them is atheists, and that's what we don't even know. We going around calling these people the people of God. We don't even know that majority of them is atheists. Then less than 10% of them believe in Jesus, so they only wear Jesus' piece. They don't believe in Jesus, right? Then it says, and the Lord thy God will, this is the point, the Lord thy God will put these curses upon thy enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee, right? So that's the whole point. As we coming back to our understanding and getting the proper knowledge of who we are, we're going to see more hell on the earth, because God is going to put the things that we went through onto them, right? And that's called justice, right? And that's called that movie with Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, right? So that's what I mean by we serve a God of justice, right? So now back over to Jeremiah. Then it says, let's get it in the G and T, right? Let's get it in the G and T. Right here, right here, right here. Start at 21. Read it again. Start at 21. So Jeremiah 50 and 21 in the GNT. It says, and the Lord says, attack the people of Mataraim and of Pekai. Kill and destroy them. Do everything I command you. I, the Lord, have spoken. Right? It says, the noise of battle is heard in the land, and there is great destruction. Babylon hammered the whole world to pieces. Meaning, America went around devastating nations, toppling governments, throughout the world. It's something called, the reason why we have a North Korea and South Korea is because of America, right? The reason why we have a puppet country called Kuwait is because of America. The reason why, the Vietnam and the Vietnamese people don't get along is because of America. The reason why you have China and Taiwan is because of, guess what? America, right? So it says, it says, boom, boom, boom. Babylon hammered the whole world to pieces, and now the hammer is shattered. All the nations are shocked at what has happened to the country. Babylon, you fought against me, and you've been caught in a trap. Meaning God is bringing this place into a trap. They don't know it. They're trying to, figure things out. They think that they got a way out, but no, God is a what's the word I'm looking for? Is a mastermind, right? He's masterminding his whole demise, right? And these people don't even know that they're walking into a burning building. They don't know it, because God is a mastermind. That's why it says, Babylon, you have fought against me, and you have been caught in a trap I set for you, even though you did not know it. I have opened the place where my weapons are stored, and in my anger I have taken them out, because I the sovereign Lord Almighty Yahweh had work to do in Babylon. Attack it from every side and break open the places where the grain is stored. Right? So this is gonna happen. We saw that too. When they went to go see Kevin Bacon, in the movie, when they was asking him what's going on, then they said, so after they got the little radiation pills from Kevin Bacon, they're sitting in the car, and dude was telling them like the 3-step program how to topple a nation. So you attack them from every side, right? That's how you get it done, right? In America, arms is not long enough to box with God. So God's bringing all these different nations against this place. America is not they're going to stretch the military too thin to try to fight anybody, right? That's how the original Rome went down. The original Rome was trying to go around fighting everybody, trying to go out and put out all the fires that they can put out. But as them doing it, their military got stressed in, right? Now you require more resources, right? Because you got to feed the soldiers. You got to pay the soldiers, right? So that's how it goes. And it says, attack from every side and break open the places where it is grain stored. Pile up the loot like piles of grain. Destroy the country. Leave nothing at all. Kill all their soldiers. Slaughter them. The people of Babylon are doomed. What does it say about America? It says the people of Babylon are doomed. The time has come for them to be punished, right? So that's what we're seeing. That's what we're going to see, right? So that's what's happening. That's why, like I said, we have to spiritually disconnect from this place, right? Don't take part of, what they like doing, because when God spin the block and he's putting gas in the car, loading up the chopper right now, getting ready to spin a block. When he spin this block, you don't want to be out there on that block with America, because you will, you will get hit too, right? Let's get that real quick. Let's get that right real quick. So it's Revelation 18:4. It says, and I heard another voice of heaven saying, come out of her, my people. It's talking about us Israelites, the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people that's stuck here in Babylon. Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. So we got to spiritually disassociate ourselves with this place. Don't celebrate their holidays, right? You see what holiday I'm celebrating? Ours. Feast of dedication, right? Don't, propagate their philosophy, right? Come back to our own understanding, our own wisdom, right? Deal with our own people, right? So, support our own businesses, right? And it says, I heard another voice come from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not her plagues. So that's what I said earlier, because I know it just sounds like I'm just saying stuff. When I said right now God is loading up the chopper, putting gas in the car, probably trying to find some riding music that he like listening to. So when he come and spin that block, it says, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not her plagues. So we have to separate from this place, because God is spinning a block with a shotgun, not a sniper rifle, a shotgun. And shotgun bullets go spread out, right? So if you out there, you going to get hit. So that's why we have to disassociate with this place spiritually. Because, we're not, we can't physically leave. You can, if you, have enough money to leave. But then when this whole thing breaks out, where are you going to go? Because there's going to be war all over the earth. Unless you go down to the, one of the little, South Pacific islands somewhere, the Fuji Islands or the Fiji Islands, however you say it, go to, Easter Island, somewhere in the far off Pacific that's far away from everywhere, right? Other than that, there ain't nowhere you can go, right? And even then, you're gonna see the side effects of what's going on, right? So like it says, let's go right here. Let's get what our ancestor Moses did in this situation. Hold on, really, really quick. Where that? So this is what our dear brother Moses did in this situation. So it says, this is Hebrews, I'm going to start at 11 and 24. By faith, Moses, when he came to years and refused to be called the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with his people, with the people of God, than enjoy pleasures of sin for a season, right? So, like I said, yeah, you can try to escape, but it ain't really nowhere you can go. And then, like I said, our dear brother Moses, he had the wherewithal, the honor to want to take a part, he didn't want to just be living good while his people were suffering. Because Moses was a prince of Egypt at one point in time. So he gave all of that up because he saw the hell that his people was going through. And he said, you know what, I'm going to go and suffer with my people. I'm going to give up this palace life and go be with my people, right? So that's what he did. So let's get, what else I'm thinking about? So yeah, by faith, he came to the years and refused to be called the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with his people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, right? So yeah, this is what I was thinking about. Hold on, let's get this real quick. Let's see. I can't remember exactly where it's at. Excuse me. Go sit down over there, okay? Let's see. Let's see. Hold on. Do it like this. Niggas in the prophets. I don't know, I'm gonna find it. Just bear with me really quick. Bear with me. What y'all look at? Over there. Oh, one second. Dang, hold on. Give me like a few more seconds. If I can't find it, I'm just gonna paraphrase it for y'all. I don't remember exactly where it's at. Don't break that. Don't break that, okay? Hold on. Hold on. My bad, y'all. Just 1 second. I'm going to find it. Don't give up on me. Okay, here we go. Boom. Found it. I told you I was going to get it. So, it's Amos 5 and 19. So, like I said, back to my point where I was trying to say, you can you can try to run and escape, and try to go somewhere that you think is safe. But this is how the Bible describes it. This is Amos 5 and 19. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear. So, like, you running from a lion. Then as you running from a lion, you see a bear coming. So then it says, and went unto a house and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. Now, so you running from a lion. So this is how the Bible describes it, especially for our people that's, or anybody, right? So it says, in that day when all hell is breaking loose on the earth, right? So that's why, I read that about Moses and, let's get it again over here in Hebrews 11 and 24. Let's get it back. Let's read it back again in Hebrews. So it says, by faith, Moses, when he came to the years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy pleasures for a season. Right? So now, like I said, so you can be like, oh man, all hell is breaking loose. I'm about to leave the country. I'm about to go here. I'm about to go there. Right? So, like I said, that's why I said it's better to be like our dear brother Moses, who, like, you know what? I know I'm living the life of a prince, but my people is down in Egypt suffering. I want to go be amongst my people. But then, like I said, you're going to have some people that think it's better that they run away. And this is what it says. So this is Amos 5 and 19. As if a man did flee from a lion. So you're running from these atrocities that's going down. It says, as a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him. So you running from that lion, but here comes a big ass bear. Then it says, or you went into a house and leaned your hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. So meaning you're not gonna be able to escape this. So you might see the lion coming. So you run from that lion, you run from that army. But then as you're running, another group of wild people coming towards you. So then you go into a house where you think it's peace and safety at. Then you get bit by a snake. So, like I said, so so it's like it's no escaping. Basically, is what it's saying. Because when God passes judgment, it's going to happen, right? So let's get let's just run through some of these precepts really, really quick, right? In no particular order, we're just going to read them, right? So, let's get Deuteronomy 10 and 9 really quick. Let's get Deuteronomy 10 and 12. So like I said, so getting back to the point, because there's no escaping. But it's something that we can do, right? It's something that we can do. And what we can do is this. It says, this is Deuteronomy 10 and 12. And now, Israel, what doeth the Lord thy God require thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahweh thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and the statutes which I command thee this day for thy good. That's what we can do to escape what's going on in the world, right? By fearing the Lord God, understanding that He has all power and control to do whatever He want to do. A lot of us like to play with God, right? We think that, oh, well, since it didn't happen today, we ain't got to worry about it. But we have to have that healthy fear of God, because the Bible tells you the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So it says, to keep the commandments of the Lord and His statutes, which I command thee this day. So we have to keep the commandments of God, right? That's what we got to do. We got to keep the commandments of God, right? That's how we can avoid, this stuff that's coming to the earth, right? Go over there. That's how we can avoid the stuff that's coming, right? So let's get this really quick. So it says, this is Psalm 66:5. Come and see the works of God. He is terrible in His doing towards the children of men. Right? Because, like I said, God is the one that's is doing all of this stuff. He's the one that's putting the spirit on these nations to do all these things. Right? So God is terrible in His works towards the children of men. Right? We got to understand that. Right? Let's get a few more. Go over there. Over there. So now this is Isaiah 54:16, right? So it says, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and bring forth the instrument of his work. I have created the waster to destroy. So what is this talking about? It's talking about thermonuclear weapons, meaning God has created the scientists, the nuclear physics guy to cultivate these weapons. Because when you think about a smith, right? Oh, watch out, little guy, before you knock it down, okay? Watch out. Over there. So, when you think about nuclear, like a Oppenheimer, right? God created and put that spirit on that man to create these massive, these weapons of mass destruction, right? So it says, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coal. Because when we think about the locksmith, the gunsmith, all these different smiths, Will Smith, all these people, the smith is like the trade, like how you take it back to the, the Western days, they had like the, the blacksmith that, that fashioned all these different, instruments, right? So it's talking about the smith. He created, like I said, once again, it's talking about the scientists, the nuclear physicists that created these weapons that he put the spirit on them so they can know how to split the atom to create this big old giant burst of energy in seconds, right? That's had the capability of destroying anything that's in the vicinity of it, right? So it says, behold, I created the smith that bloweth the coal of the fire, and that bringeth forth the instrument for his work. I have created the waster to destroy. What is the waster? Those ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles. That is the waster. China has something that's hypersonic that can fly faster, twice as fast, or probably more than that. But we, at the bare minimum, we're gonna say twice as fast as the speed of sound. Russia has a bomb that can get here from Russia to here in America within 30 to 45 minutes, right? And that's why the Bible tells you that in 1 hour, Babylon should be destroyed, right? So, and when you understand like how how long it takes for one of those missiles to get here, then when the Bible says in 1 hour this place will be destroyed, it all lines up, right? So let's get what else I want? see what this say real quick. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's get this real quick. Let's get Obadiah. So we're going back to get Obadiah. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Let's start at verse 1. Right? Obadiah 1 and 1. We're going to read down to about 7 or 8. Right? So it says, the vision of Obadiah, thus said Yahweh God concerning Edom. Edom is what we'll call the so-called Europeans. Right? All of them as a nation. So yeah, even though America is using Russia and their allies to do what they're going to do, but this is a judgment concerning every last one of them, period. Right? And, but then certain parts is talking about Pacific nations like America, and we're going to see. So that's what brings me here. So it says, the vision of Obadiah, thus said Yahweh God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord. Ambassador has sent among the heathens. Arise ye and let us rise up against her in battle. Right? So like I said, this is all these nations gearing up for war to come against America. Right? So it says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Right? So and we know that they're small among the heathens, meaning they're not, meaning people put up with them, but they dislike them. That's why you hear those Iranians talking about death to America, and other places like that, right? They're despised. And then they have a low birth rate. That's why, also they're small in that way. I had a Facebook post about a month or so ago that says that Italy, first time in history, Italy went 3 months without having a baby born in their country. They have a very low birth rate. More of them are dying than being born, right? There's more old Edomites than there are young Edomites, right? They have a very low birth rate, right? And that's all over their empire, wherever they at. Here in America, they have a low birth rate because a lot of them is dying from opioid overdoses. Then throughout Europe, they have a low birth rate, right? So this is what God is doing to them, right? And it tells you, behold, I have made thee small among the heathens, and thou art greatly despised, right? So then, not only that, they only make up 15% of the world population, right? So they are the smaller group of people. The rest of the world is melanated, and so the rest of the world is melanated, and they only 15% of the world population, right? So small amongst the nations. The pride in thy heart hath deceived thee. Thou dwellest in cliffs and of the rocks, whose habitation is high. Talking about their caveman mentality, because we know that they dwell in the cliffs of the rocks. Talking about these caves that they once were in, right? Before they came out and tried to call themselves being civilized. Which we have to civilize them. And if you ask me, we didn't do a good job at it because we see how they behave. Then it says, the pride of thy heart has deceived thee, thou that dwell in cliffs and rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? So that's the pride of these people. They think that, that they can do whatever they want and no army can do anything to them, right? That's the pride, right? So it says, who's going to bring them down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as an eagle. Because what is America's symbol? The eagle. What was their, during the ancient Rome, when Rome was, their first empire, Rome, was the eagle. What about when they was calling themselves the Greeks? The eagle, right? Even Nazi Germany had an eagle sitting on the top of their flag, right? So it says, Though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars, hence will I bring thee down, said the Lord. Right? And who are the stars? The Israelites, because they rule over us. We are their working force, right? If 40 million of us decide tomorrow to not go to work and stay at home, this whole empire will crash. So we are those stars. Then on the flip side, speaking of those satellites they got rotating around the earth, to watch everything, right? Because, they think of themselves as God. So, but they use technology to try to, you know, uh, to emulate the powers that they, perceive God having, like the ability to look at everything and watch everybody. So they set up all these different satellites and these different listening devices, what I'm saying, like, putting hidden cameras and everything and recording devices, and everywhere. So it says, though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, since I will bring thee down, said Yahweh. If a thief come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen until they had enough? So that's what they can do. That's how they get down. They steal, rob, steal, and kill everything. So the Bible is telling you who these people are. They will not stop stealing, even if there's no such thing as them having enough. The Bible tells you that these people have enlarged themselves like hell, like death. That's what the Bible, God is, in another chapter, we can get that too, if you don't believe me. God compares them to death, because death is never satisfied. People die every day, right? By the tens of thousands, people die every day. So death is never satisfied. Death is always looking for the next, victim. So that's how these people operate. So it says, if a thief come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Meaning, like how are we going to stop these people, right? Would not they have stolen until they got enough? No, they don't get enough. They will never get enough, because the Bible tells you that they enlarge themselves as hell, as death. And it says, if grape gatherers come to thee, would they not leave some grapes? So now this is because in our culture, in the Israelite culture, when you're gathering grapes, when you're picking grapes, if the grapes fall to the ground, you're supposed to leave it there. So in case somebody is poor, a homeless person, a hungry person, if they come to your field, they're allowed to eat the grapes that's on the ground, right? So you can't do anything about them. If they find a whole bunch of grapes on the ground, you can't be like, hey, give me my grapes. So they're telling you that these people, they will pick the grapes off the vine, and they will get the grapes that's on the ground too. So, I hope it make more sense, because when we understand the culture of the Israelites, like I said, when you're picking fruit or grapes or whatever falls to the ground, you're supposed to leave it there. So if a poor person comes through, somebody that's hungry, they're allowed to get it, right? But they would take that too. That's what the Bible is telling you. They would even take that also. They would steal everything. Because we know when you get into the conquistadors and the Spanish niggers that came over here, they went over to Mexico, and they were stealing all the gold from our Issachar brothers. And it's stories of, it's Spanish ships that's in the bottom of the ocean right now, because they had so much gold on their ships that the ships sunk before they went back to Spain. That's the greed of these people, right? That they would fill their ship so much that, a lot of them have to lose their lives because there's so much gold on the ship, that the ship sunk. It's ocean, what they call them, the ocean diver people that go and be finding like treasures and stuff like that, shipwrecks, they're still finding Spanish ships with a massive amount of gold like still on it, right? Because that's how these people get down. It says, Says, if a thief come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen until they had enough? Even grape gatherers come to thee, and would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Like, like, who's, when we going to figure these people out? When we going to figure this is their MO, this is how they get down, right? Because a lot of our people think you can refine these people, right? Let's see this really quick. Oh, here we go right here. Let's read this. So it says, Habakkuk, should I say, ye also because ye transgress with wine, and he is a proud man. Nobody's more prouder than Esau, aka the European Caucasian man, woman, and child. It says, yet ye also transgress by wine, and he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. Well, we know they don't keep at home. They're supposed to be in the Caucasus Mountains, or Russell, Georgia, or over there in Mount Seir, right? In modern day Jordan, right? But they're everywhere. And the places that they went, they raped, robbed, murdered, and killed to get it, right? They're not original to no place on this planet except for technically Mount Seir, right? Petra, right? Modern day Jordan. So it says, he also, because he transgressed with wine, he is a proud man. It's not talking about, actual wine. It's talking about his philosophies, their way of life that they go around pushing around the world, their democracy that they try to force everybody to be part of. And it says, he's a proud man, neither keeper at home. Because we know everywhere they go, they in everybody's country trying to tell them what to do. They're everywhere. It says, neither keeper at home, who enlarges his desires as hell and as death. So like we just understood, like these people, God is comparing them to death. Like we just said, people die every day, B, right? So that's how they operate. You know what I'm saying? They will never be satisfied. Just like death is never satisfied because people die all the time. There's never a day in history that people don't die. So it's telling you that these people is just unsatisfiable, if that's the word. That it says, who enlarges his desire as hell and as death. Meaning they go around causing this destruction, toppling governments, destroying things. And it says, as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heap unto him all people, right? And that's what he does. He go around the whole world propagating stuff, brainwashing people, forcing them to partake in their way of life, right? Let's get this really quick. Revelation 17:1. Revelation 17:1 says, and there came one of the seven angels which had seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Talking about America, because America got military garrisons in like over 160 some countries. They have a military base almost every country you can think of, right? Then they want to act like these other nations is the aggressors. When you look at the map of the South China Sea, right, and see where China is located at, you can see that it's tens.
What are you doing in there?
It's tens of different.
Get up.
It's tens of different armies, right? All of there's tens of armies, different nations all over the place, right? So they got China surrounded, right? So you see those things, right? So like I said, so you see that they got these different areas surrounded, and they got all these military bases. Then you look at Russia, and you type in military bases, in Europe around Russia. Russia is barricaded in. So, but they want to act like that these people are being aggressors. Like the example I use all the time. If you live in somewhere, then you have an enemy that want to kill you, that stays right across the street from you. Then now you have an enemy that stay right next door to you. Then you have an enemy that stay to the other side of you. So, they just slowly piling up on that block. You're going to feel a little some type of way. So, but then in American media, they push it like that China and Russia, they're the aggressors. But like I said, you can look up, how many military bases America got in the South China Sea, and look at the location compared to China, and you see that China is barricaded in. Then you can look at the same thing with Russia. They're barricaded in. That's why it's a problem, because it will be a problem for you if you live somewhere, then your enemy, not just a regular enemy, I'm talking about an enemy that wants you dead, is moving in right next door to you, and not just him, many other enemies that want you dead. You're going to think that's a problem, right? So we can't blame these people for thinking that, for doing what they're doing. Putin was forced into doing what he did in Ukraine. It wasn't that Putin said, you know what, I'm going to go mess with Ukraine one day. That's because America was flirting with Ukraine, trying to get them on board so then they can put nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And that's right next door to Russia. Bad enough they got Russia already surrounded. So this is what it says right here. This is Ezekiel. I know I'm jumping around, but like I said, this is through the Spirit. It wasn't no real lesson plan. It's just going off the Spirit, right? So it says, this is Ezekiel 38:4. I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws and bring thee forth in all thy armies, horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them built handling swords, right? So this is the spirit that God put on the Russians, because like I said, they didn't want to go into it, but God says, I will turn thee back, meaning he's going to put Russia back into that state of the USSR, the Soviet Union mind state, when it was on straight bullshit back in the 70s and the 80s, right? But they didn't want to do that. Putin, when you look, like I said, you got to understand the geopolitics. And of course, I'm not cheering or rooting for this man, because as we're going to go back to Obadiah, we're reading that God have a great plan for all of them, right? Then not only that, when you keep reading this chapter that I'm reading now, it tells you that God has a great plan for the Russians, right? This whole chapter right here is about the Russians, right? So it says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forward into all thy armies, horses, all thy army, horses and horsemen, and all of them clothed with sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords. And we know the modern day sword is the gun, right? So it's talking about these armies, right? So, like I said, Putin didn't want to get down like that, but America putting all those military bases around everywhere forced Putin to get into that. Then, as we see how it plays out on the spiritual thing, it says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. So just like if you put a hook in somebody's jaw, you know what I'm saying, or you know how the horses got the little, what they call a bridle that they put in their mouth, you can steer them. That's how God is doing with the Russian leadership. He's steering them into the direction that he wants them to go, and that direction is called war, right? So back over here. So it says in Revelation 7:1, and there came out one of the seven angels which had seven vials and talked with me, saying, unto me, come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great horror that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Right? So, what did that mean? Like I said, it goes back to America pushing their philosophies on these other nations and having control over these governments, setting up these puppet governments. You know, these different nations that they're influencing. So it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Right? So that's what happened to a lot of these nations. They're being carried away with the philosophy of America. That's why Ukraine is so, want to be a part of this whole NATO thing, right? Because they carried away with the philosophy of America and these other nations that's involved, right? Let's get back and finish this. So it says, all this is Obadiah, back to Obadiah 1 and 7. It says, all the men that of thy confederacy had brought thee even to thy border, the men that were at peace with thee, talking about NATO. Because we started off talking about how these different members of NATO is going to turn against America, right? So we're reading it here. So it says, the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, meaning the ones that they was cool with, went to school with, right? Then it says, eat thy bread, laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in them. Meaning you're not going to be able to talk these people down. Once they decide to turn up against America, it's on and popping. America's not going to be able to, talk to them and say, hey, just make another deal. They're like, nah, we ain't going, right? So that's what, is dealing with. So let's read one more, I guess. It says, and so I not in that day, said Yahweh, even destroyed the wise man out of Edom and the understanding out of Mount Esau. Meaning they're philosophers, they're generals, they're wise people, they're strategists. They're not going to know what to do in that day. Because God is going to take their wisdom and understanding away from them. And we see that now. That's why Biden is making all these dumbass decisions to do things, right? These decisions that is, detrimental to his own nation, right? You have the Maui fires, people out in Hawaii still need aid. And I didn't read the article, but I seen like the little heading or something. It's basically like a timeline for the people in Hawaii to like try to, get some type of financial aid. When these people over here in Israel and Ukraine, they got a black card. They got America's black card in their pocket. They can get any amount of money they want. Then you have areas in America that look like third world countries, and America supposed to be this rich country, but you got these areas around America that look like third world countries. They can't get no aid, right? So, like I said, so we see what's really going on, right? We see the dumb decisions that this guy is making, because it says, shall I not in that day, said Yahweh, even destroy the wise man out of Edom and understanding out of Mount Esau, right? Then it says, and thy mighty men or Teman shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the Mount Esau may be cut off by slaughter. So that's what's going to happen in this third war's war. They're going to be cut off by slaughter. Hold on 1 second. Slaughter. Yeah, Slocky. So that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna be cut off by slaughter, right? So let's get something else. Let me hit on this real quick before we get out of here. For the second Ezra's 15 and something. Let's see. Let's start at verse 1. So second Ezra 15 and 1. Behold, speak thou into the ears of my people, who the Israelites, the words of prophecy which I have put in thy mouth, said Yahweh, said the Lord, right? Let's get a precept real quick on that. It says, follow after charity. This is Corinthians 14 and 1. Follow after charity and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that ye may prophesy. So that's a spiritual gift, prophecy. So that's what we're doing. We're understanding prophecy. As we reading these things, we're matching it up with current events and things that's going on in the world. So this is Hebrews 6 and 9. But beloved, we are persuaded better things of you and things that are accompany salvation, though we does speak, right? So that's what we got to understand, how our salvation is coming through these prophecies, right? And so just read on back to second Ezra in 15, verse 2. And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not thy incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Right? So you're going to have a lot of people that's going to lose faith in these days. And because of they losing faith, they're going to die. You know, because the Bible tells you, he that keepeth faith unto the end shall be saved. So, but I know, of course, you go to church and everybody in church talking about they're saved. But the Bible says, he that keep their faith unto the end shall be saved. Let's see if we can get that real quick. Where is that? Hold on, get it real quick. We'll get back there. Hold on. So, I mean, we can read this one too. So, this is Luke 24 and 49. It says, behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry ye in the city of Jerusalem until ye endure with the power from high. Right? Because we got to endure. So, let's get this. Find this really quick. Okay, here it goes. It's right here. Oh. So it says, but he that endures unto the end, the same shall be saved. Right? So, but like I said, so we gotta make it to the end of this thing. Whether you know you make it to see the end of Armageddon and Yahweh Shah come back with the mighty angels and all that stuff, or you so happenly either die a martyr, right? You die protecting your faith, and keeping your faith intact, or you live your life in however way you just you die, you still keep that same faith, and you don't waver. Like I said, then you'll be when the kingdom start, which will be on earth, you'll be raised back up into this kingdom, right? Because a lot of people think you gotta die to go to heaven, when the Bible tells you that what we consider heaven, or which is actually rulership, because we already covered that once before, that is going to be on earth, right? So it says, fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the credulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness, right? So that's why it says that, but he shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved, right? So we have to endure to the end, right? So let's move on. It says, behold, said the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction, right? So that's what's going to happen. Famine, death, and destruction, because when stuff, when all hell starts to break loose, because, like I said, when all things start breaking loose, when the grocery store is empty, there's nothing on the shelf, and it's not going to be another delivery truck coming at all, right? When when someone is trying to kick in your door and you try to dial 911, you hear a dial tone, right? When it ain't safe outside, even in the daylight, right? It says, behold, said Yahweh, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So that sword is talking about war. Famine is talking about lack of food. Death, of course, that comes with the first two. And destruction, right? This all out hell, right? So that's what's going down. So it says, for the wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So that's what's going to happen, right? Because we think since things don't happen like that, it ain't going to never happen. That's because we live in this microwave society where we think everything has to happen when we say it should happen and how it should happen, right? Then it says, therefore said the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching the wickedness which they profane commit, neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and the righteous blood cry unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually, right? And that's what happened. Because these people, went around committing all type of atrocities on the earth, and the wicked, the innocent, they cry out, what are you doing? Okay, don't do that. Get out of there, okay? Go back to this. And play this or something, alright? Sit down. So, then, it says, all the unfaithful shall die in their wickedness. Okay, boom, boom, boom. For the wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Then it says, okay, jump down to 8, that's where I was. And I will hold my tongue no more as touching the wickedness which they profane commit, neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and the righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. Because that's what happens, because like even when you take it back to uh, Cain and Abel real quick, right? Because God holds court. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we be waiting on the justice system of this world. We don't know that God holds court, right? So whenever the wicked is slain, so say like us, somebody shoots somebody, or whatever type of way they end up killing somebody, out of hatred, murder. So that wicked person is just like how you go and you sue somebody or you make a complaint. So that wicked person is complaining to God all day, every day for their justice that you have done to them, right? I mean, for the justice that, that happened to them. So, let's go here real quick. So this Genesis 4 and 9. It says, hold on. Up here real quick. What I say? Genesis 4 and 9. It says, for the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel, thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Right? I know that's a famous line, especially from that movie, New Jack City. But when you look at it in its context, that's actually a wicked statement to make. Because we're supposed to look after each other, right? So it says, and he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cry unto me from the ground, right? So like it says right here, it says, behold, the innocent, this is 2 Ezra 15 and 8. Behold, the innocence and the righteousness and the righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. So when Abel got killed, he immediately went to the Father, immediately went to God, who is a just God of justice, and cried out to him, right? So that's what happens when our people get, unjustly killed. God, hear these prayers of these people, and then that causes him to act on justice, right? And to get a good idea of how justice works, we can look at, we're going to read this real quick. Like, so I know I'm jumping. I'm going to get back to 2nd Ezra, because 2nd Ezra is real heavy. But, like I said, this is all through the Spirit. This ain't, planned, I'm just going wherever it leads me to. So now we can look at Tupac example, right? What's the nigga name? Orlando Anderson or something like that. That killed him. Well, I know his name Orlando something. So now Orlando Anderson and them niggas they killed Tupac. So then how the story go? About 7 months later, Orlando got killed in a shootout in a gas station. So that's how justice go. You know what I'm saying? And because the Bible tells you that his judgment is like a ring, or how we say in today's term, what goes around come around, right? So his judgment is like a ring. So, and right here, just get this. This is Luke 18 and verse 1. So this is Yahushua talking, who the world calls Jesus. And it says, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that the man ought always be to pray and not faint. That's what we got to do. We always got to stay in prayer, right? Always pray. And a lot of times our people are so quick to lose faith, so we always got to stay in prayer. Then it says, saying, there is a city, a judge, which fear not God, neither regard men. So it's talking about this wicked judge that resides over this city, right? And it says, there was a widow in the city and she came unto him, saying, avenge me of my adversary. So she has a complaint, and she needs to be, she needs some type of restitution for what happened to her because of somebody committed some type of wickedness to her, right? So she's telling this judge to avenge her, right? Let's just get this really, really quick. This is Revelation 12 and 10. And it says, I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come the salvation and the strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night, right? So there's people that, so like I said, so this is what she's asking for, this person that is offending her for something to be done, right? So, let's get 2 Thessalonians really, really quick. And we'll get back to the parable. 2 Thessalonians 1 and 6. Then it says, seeing it is a righteous thing with God, not me, I'm not saying this, this is what we're being told, it's a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. So God's saying it's a righteous thing for him to pay these people back for the evil that they done to you, right? It's a righteous thing. It's a righteous act, to pay those people back for the trouble and the harm that they caused you, right? So it says, seeing it as a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you, and to you who are troubled with us, when the Lord Jesus shall reveal from heaven with his mighty angels, a flaming fire taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, right? So, like I said, these people are wicked. They try to, let's read it one more time. It says, and to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord, the Mashiach, Yahweh shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels, and the flaming fire taking vengeance on them that know not God and that not obey the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, right? So, like I said, so he's telling you it's a righteous thing to pay these people back, and when we know that these people are not righteous, we don't have to get into the whole history. We know what these people done. So, like I said, it's a righteous thing. So back over here, back to Luke. Then it says, and there was the widow in the city, and she came to him, saying, avenge me of my adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterwards he said within himself, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow trouble me, I will avenge her, lest by her continuing she weary me. So now this wicked judge that's oversee this city, this town, whatever, right? He's getting tired of this lady coming to him every day, complaining, asking him to do something. So now the point is that this wicked judge, acted on her behalf. So, but we have a just judge in the name of Yahweh and his son, the Mashiach Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus. We have so now if this wicked man can, finally come around and help this woman out, what more do we think that the God of this whole universe is going to do? So let's keep reading. So it says, yet because the widow troubled me, I will avenge her, lest by her continuing she weary me. And the Lord said, hear what the unjust said, and shall not God avenge his own? So we just said that, right? So seeing that after a while, a wicked judge, someone that is corrupt, can have, can come to the sense of, well, I got to do something about this woman. because something happened to her. So, because she keep bugging me. So, how we read that the innocent, how we read in 2nd Esdras 15, how the innocent that is killed by these people, they pray and ask for justice day in and day out. And how we read about Abel in Genesis, that Abel is crying out to God for justice, right? So that's how we are. And God hears that, and he will act, right? So it says, this is Revelation 6 and 9. And when he had opened the 5th seal and saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Yahweh, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? So this is what our people is screaming, our ones that was killed, unjustly throughout the ages of time. We're praying this prayer to God. We're asking God, how long is it going to take for you to send your son back to judge this world, to do what you say he's going to do? How long, right? So, back over here, it says, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man come, shall he find faith on the earth? And that's what the thing is. We got to keep that faith, because, we see things and we go through stuff, then we often lose faith on, predicated off the stuff that we've seen and go through. But we have to keep that faith and understand that we have a just God that is planning on acting on our behalf. But you got to understand that God is a mastermind on how he do things. Everything has to, the way he do things, it have to play out how he said it's going to play out, so he can, when he exact judgment on that particular group or people, it can be just and final. You know what I'm saying? Just like how we get into the story of Moses. When, Moses was asking Pharaoh to let my people go. And God told Moses, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. Meaning, he's going to put a spirit on Pharaoh where Pharaoh just going to just be arrogant and not even listen to what Moses is saying. He's going to be, he's going to say one thing, but then he's going to do another. Because it's been a few times when you follow that story, the Pharaoh was like, yeah, I'm going to let him go. But then he turned around and said, nah. Right? So, but God was putting that spirit on the Pharaoh, so to harden him up, so when he finally judge him, it can be catastrophic, right? And it was, right? That's like one of the most famous stories out of the that we know about, right? So it says, get Zechariah 13 really, really quick. Zechariah 13 and 8. And it shall come to pass that in all of the land, said the Lord, 2 parts thereof shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. So that's why we got to have that faith that we be part of that third. Then it says, and I will bring the third part through the fire and refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold, and they shall call on my name, and I will hear them, and I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Yahweh is my God, right? So that's why it says, nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Because we're going to have to go through some things, right? You know what I'm saying? Then as we go through those things and witness things, we're going to have to keep that faith, because if we're going to be part of that 1/3 that make it out of Babylon, right? And so we're going to have to go through things. Because like it says, I will bring them through the third part I will bring the third part through the fire. And what's that fire? All hell. The ICM missiles, all that stuff, right? Jacob's trouble, famine, destruction, all that stuff. And so we're going to have to keep the faith through those days, right? And we can't be like, oh man, I haven't ate in a couple of days. Maybe God gave up on me. Then you start losing faith, right? Then you end up falling out of the truth, out of the understanding. So now you end up subject to what the rest of the world is going through. Because, I mean, everything is not going to be great every day, you know? Because, our dear brother Job said, should I only receive good from God and not evil? Meaning, you know, like God is blessing me, giving me these blessings and all this stuff all day long. So, I mean, should I just only expect, you know, God to just give me blessings and not give me no type of trouble in my life? So that's how a lot of our minds think, because, you know, we think that, you know, God is like a genie, that all he's supposed to do is just grant wishes and just give you everything that you ever wanted all day long. So then when hell happens, you know, then you want to, you know, curse God or blame the devil and all that stuff, and not understanding that, you know, God is in control of everything. So it's just like how people, we know people that long as you tell them yes, they're the greatest person ever. If you got a yes for them, they are the greatest people ever, the nicest people ever. But as soon as you tell them that no, that's when you see the real them and the evil comes out. So that's how we kind of look at it like that. It's like, man, you know, long as God giving you that yes and not, you know, giving you all these blessings, you cool with the blessings. But then when God throw a little trouble your way to see how you might react to it, then that's when you fall apart, right? So we got to keep the faith, because like I said, nevertheless, shall the Son of Man come and shall he find faith on the earth, right? So let's get back to Ezra, because a few things I want to read, right? So this is at verse 10, 2nd Ezra 15 and 10. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. So that's what happened. You know, because people were so quick to jump to anything and gravitate to anything, follow all this stuff. Like I was telling a friend of mine the other day, that our people love things that sound deep. It can be a straight bullshit, but if you make it sound deep and fantastical, we're going to be all with it. You know, like, we love myths, you know what I'm saying? We love the untruths, you know what I'm saying? We love a lie that sounds good. So it says, behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. And you understand that metaphor, because sheep, you know, a sheep can be on the line going through the slaughterhouse. You know, they don't know what's going on. You know, they can see the sheep in front of them just went through the little blaze and got chopped up really, really quick. And they don't know. They're not gonna have, it's not gonna click in their head, oh, I gotta get out of the line. I gotta get off this belt because I'm next. So that's how the Israelites are. You know, we're ready to follow whatever is hot. You know what I'm saying? Whatever is, you know, seem popular, whatever sounds like it's just mystifying and deep. You know what I'm saying? That's how our people think. So it says, behold, my people are led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them out with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all other land. So now this is talking about spiritual Egypt. It's not talking about actual Egypt. Because when you understand Ezra's lived centuries after, you know, after we were in Egypt. So it's not talking about Egypt, right? It's talking about a spiritual Egypt. So let's get that real quick. We'll get back to it. So right here, this is Revelation 11 and 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city. This is talking about America. It's that great city, and it's called that in the Bible. America is known as that great city, Mystery Babylon, Daughter of Babylon, or just Babylon, right? And Egypt. There it says, and their great bodies shall, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of that great city, which is spiritually, that's the key word, spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. And that's interesting that this place, America, is known spiritually as Sodom and Egypt, right? Because we know the laws that they passed here, and we know what the history that took place here. You know, just like in Egypt, we were enslaved for hundreds of years. Here in America, we was enslaved for hundreds of years. Just like Sodom was known for their sodomy, America have laws that is, you know, protecting people that is into sodomy, right? So it's interesting that they call this place spiritually Sodom and Egypt, right? So when we read over here, it says, I will suffer them not to dwell in the land of Egypt, because understand that Esdras is like almost down there a millennia after our stint in Egypt. And I will bring them with a mighty hand and stretch out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before. I will destroy all the land thereof. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plagues and punishment that God shall bring upon them. Right? So, like I said, there's going to be stuff happening here, right? Then, it says, and they that till the ground shall mourn in. I'll turn that down, okay? They that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fall through the blasting of hell, and with the fear of constellations. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Right? Talking about this nuclear fire, this nuclear war, this World War III that's going to happen. Woe to us, right? Because it's not going to be a pleasant thing, right? So let's get that real quick, because let's get this real quick. We're going to get back to it. I know I keep going in and out of Esdras, but like I said, certain things pop up. A lot of our people, they be acting like when God come back, it's gonna be a great thing, and it's gonna be so wonderful, and and people be like, oh yeah, you know what people say, right? But this is what the Bible says. Hold on one second. So this is Amos 5:18. It says, woe unto them, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. Right? So meaning it's destruction that's coming. It's going to be all hell breaking loose. It's going to be a lot of, not just war and famine, it's going to be seismic activity. Earthquakes happening everywhere. Volcanoes blowing up. You know what I'm saying? Like that movie, Leave the World Behind. You see airplanes falling out the sky. All this crazy stuff is going to be going down. So it says, but you go to church and they be, acting like, okay, the day of the Lord coming is going to be great. Angels going to be singing and, music playing, all that stuff, right? But no, it says, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it to you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Meaning it's going to be very destructive times when God, sent his son Yahushua to make that grand appearance. It's going to be very undesirable. Even people that know what's going on, it's going to be terrifying to see. So that's, we got to understand that. So back over here. Back to Esdras 15:10. Behold, my people is led to the flock to the slaughter. I will not suffered them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and outstretched arm, smite Egypt with plagues as before, and destroy all of the land thereof. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall